seeing all the people that came out, seeing all the prize support, seeing all the people, the player support. So looking forward to keeping it going.
Oh, for sure. In November? Yeah, I'll definitely be back at the one in November. My friend Chet won the raffle, so that was cool.
I just won that raffle for $1,000, and this is going to help out a lot.
Welcome, my name is Aaron, and this is the Pro Support TCG Weekend. Right now we're covering the Modern 20k. We are on day 2, and I believe this is round 13 out of 16, so we're getting really close to the top 8 contention. It's been a pretty good day so far in terms of diversity. There's a lot of decks you'd expect to see, but the ones that are doing well are kind of spread all over the place. So we're going to go ahead and go down to the feature match area and see what our players are up to. All right, we've got JP and William here, and I believe we've got a let's see. Looks like we've just got a tap stomping ground on turn number 1, so no fetch lands yet. The player's maintaining a nice, comfortable life total. Okay, so we're immediately starting off with the Fire Ice, icing the land, preventing from any kind of mana development. It seems pretty strong, but I think that usually you end up seeing Fire happen a lot. But I think Fire Ice would have been really strong for Splinter Twin had it been around at the time. All right, we've already got just the turn 3 footfalls. A lot of pressure. This deck similarly plays a lot like Living End. You know, you play your Cascade, you get some attack power. But you don't have to put cyclers in the graveyard. You can have a little bit more room in your deck to play actual interaction and not just have cyclers. The downside is that you don't draw through your deck quite as much. So you maybe a few games, you don't find your Cascaders quite as often. But from a little bit of my own experience and from just people I've been talking to, it doesn't seem to have that much more difficulty finding its Cascade cards. So it looks like we've got some rhinos, so to speak. Those are our rhino tokens. But being on the play is a pretty big deal here, especially getting that tempo advantage, not losing a card. And it looks like we got Force Negation just 1 turn too late. So I definitely like being on this side here. Big swing for 10. Gotta be able to get some blocks, and I like this play. Won't really be down any more cards. Whether or not you just trade rhinos or you trade 1 rhino and keep 1 and get rid of the agent is debatable. So I do like our Pokemon thing. So he is opting to get rid of the agent. I don't blame him, you know, keeping me a 4/4. He's got a 4/4. I get to untap into my turn. But no one's taken any damage yet, but it looks like he's just going to, just take 4. Go to 16, I get to untap, I can attack you, maybe play some more rhinos. It's going to be definitely a lot of back and forth. He's hoping his opponent doesn't have another one, and he doesn't have to burn the Force yet. Best case scenario, he'll get to wait, maybe hard cast Force, not go down a card, because he does look like he has an Omnath in his hand. And that's something he would like to do, recoup some of that life. Okay, so William goes down to 16. 15 cracks his fetch. Okay, so he'll be able to just hold off on his outburst, do it on his opponent's turn, so he doesn't have to worry about his opponent's force. And if his opponent has his own outburst again, which looks like he is representing, he would have to spend mana on his force. So it's he's opting not to do it. Well, he might do it. I don't know. Might depend on how many cards JP has left in his hand. So interestingly enough, even though people kind of know what to expect for the most part when playing against this. Having that footfall so far down, he does get to see a little bit if there's anything to expect here. So far, it's mostly been tit for tat. JP's at 16, Williams at 15, just kind of trading blow for blow, both preferring outbursts to avoid the force. Now, if he wanted to, he could have outburst in response, but that would open him up to force, so I don't blame him for waiting. But since JP has the superior board presence at the moment, he can afford to hold up mana, but he does not have double blue. So it looks like we're going to see a rinse repeat of the last turn. The question is, do you just trade all of it and go back to neutral? There could definitely be a blowout here with Brazen Borrower, Petty Theft. Okay, so he decides to go ahead and burn the force. I don't blame him. He needs to try to maintain board parity. All right, do we have any other combat tricks here? It looks like we probably don't, so we're just going to go ahead and do the damage. Okay, so William drops down to 9. It's looking pretty good so far for, in terms of tempo, our player on the play is looking pretty strong. But at this point in the game, I would mostly just try to stay ahead on cards and board. Like, their trading blow is pretty strong. If it continues like this, this kind of shows the strength of play draw. And the more powerful your cards are, the more you're going to want to play first. And we've reached a point, I think, in my humble opinion, a point in Magic where playing second just isn't a thing. Like, if you're not playing Mantless Dredge, you're not playing second. So Omnath resolving here can definitely swing the tempo back in favor. Being at 8 life, it's pretty low for William, but if he resolves this and gets some lands off, I think this can put him back in the game. Ooh, Fury. Fury's definitely really good. That's going to put him... Question is, does he want to burn it now? I think with a land drop, it's safe to wait and just hard cast the Fury, and that's going to swing the tempo way in his favor. Can't force a negation of Fury, so that's going to be pretty strong. All right, so gaining that 4 life will put him back up to 12, fetch back down to 11. I think at this point in the game, if he doesn't answer with his own Omnath in some way, or if he doesn't find Fury, which it looks like he does not have, he does have a way to bounce the Omnath, but that doesn't seem very good. He'll just get another card. So I'm going to guess he'll probably bounce the token. Okay, so he just, I guess, decides to evoke the Fury now. Oh, no, wait. He had a fetch land. So he used the mana from Omnath to just hardcast Fury. So now he swings the game way back in his favor. So William's at 10, JP's at 12. So the life totals are pretty close, but the vastly superior board presence is on William's side. Now, JP does have more cards in his hand, but it doesn't look like it's anything that can reasonably deal with what he's got to play here. He can bounce a token, that'll help a little bit. Bouncing Fury seems bad. Honestly, bouncing Omnath seems bad, but not bouncing Omnath also seems bad. I mean, if he just starts hitting land drops, he's generating more advantage, and the footfalls in his hand seems kind of bad. So showcasing the power of Omnath Theory. I mean, when he first came out, he was seeing lots of play and felt a little bit less, he still saw play, but he wasn't as dominating, but definitely still the same card, just as much power. All right, so we're going for 2 damage. Make a treasure token. Use the red, 2 more damage. Okay. Suspend. Okay, I like this play, but he's facing down 10 attack power, and he's only at 12. All right. So he attacks, puts JP down to 2 life. Still has 9 life himself, so William's looking in pretty strong position. That footfall's not coming off anytime soon. Okay, it looks like he has a Fire Ice, and I can't quite tell what that other card is. Just a land. So he can tap with Fury. That'll buy him. He draws a card. Nope, okay, he didn't have anything. So game number 1 is going to go to JP. Pretty strong showing of Omnath there. That the life gain and the mana both just mildly swinging tempo back in his favor. He was able to get his life total to a comfortable place and drop the Fury, swing the board presence back into his favor. But as we're going back over to the booth, I think that if I were sideboarding here, the card I would probably want, there's definitely a lot of options for sideboard. I don't have them right now, but if I just was theory crafting and I had the optimal sideboard for this, Brazen Borrower seems strong. It is almost as good of a tempo card as Omnath, not quite as raw power mana for mana, but it turns out bounce effects are good against tokens. So when your bounce effect is a Brazen Borrower, you're also putting board presence and pressure back later in the game to help swing it back. But Omnath is one of the better cards in this matchup. If you can not stumble too much in the early turns, get to the 4th and 5th mana, Omnath will really swing the game back in your favor. So being able to stop Omnath is also good, but you have a limited amount of options when you're playing a deck like this. Like Cascade decks like Restore Balance, Crashing Footfalls, and Living End have very strict deck restrictions. You cannot play anything that has less than a total of 3 mana except for those cards. So with that in mind, that doesn't give you a whole lot to work with. I do think you need to keep the Force Negations in because there are a lot of spells other than the Cascade spells that you still want to counter, and it can swing the tempo back in your favor as well. But while our players are siding boarding, we're just going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back with game number 2 here at Pro Support TCG Weekend, and it looks like our players are both taking some mulligans. It's going to ship them back in like what they saw, most likely out of the overall amount of lands. You definitely don't want too few or too many. There's not really a lot of ways to have card selection without cycling. And when it comes to a mirror match and Footfalls deck, there's a lot of tempo considerations like we saw in the last game. And Omnath really made a wild swing. You don't even see Omnath in all the lists. I'm a big fan of it, though. The 4th color can be a little annoying, but as you just saw, the power is quite intense, and there's certain matchups where Omnath single-handedly can win the game. All right, considering these mulligans, looks like both players are going to keep their 6. And just a lot of tap going out. It looks like William here is probably going to, just suspend the Footfalls. There's not really a lot. Some decks may play Valakut Awakening, but I mean, that's not really what you want to be doing a lot of the time. The tap land is not very good. So I think at this point, Living In might be dead in your hand, but Crashing Footfalls not so much. Suspending on turn 1 is a very realistic play. The game usually will go more than 5 or 6 turns as they trade blows. But yeah, William just, cracks goes 19, plays his Footfalls. All right, we did not see an ice this time, so is there anything we can do with 2 mana? Usually turn 2, if there's no creatures in play, there's not a lot that there is to spend your mana on. I do like ice, though. I would like to save ice for my opponent's turn 3. I don't think William has an ice, though. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So he just decides to instead crack his fetch. JP goes 19. finds one of his tri-lands so he can have that fourth color. Pretty important since he is running Omnath. Depending on how some of these card-for-card interactions go, the turn 1 suspended footfalls could end up making a pretty big difference. But he is representing a crushing footfalls right now. So if, let's say he had an ice, would you just do it and maybe use a force? I don't know. But setting up fourth color is pretty important early on. The second turn, usually nothing is really happening. So just get that out of the way. As William goes to 18 here, he's going to untap and absolutely expect and play around a Violent Outburst here. So in terms of what the best thing you can do is, it's not entirely clear. I know Mystical Dispute is a pretty good card, so are you willing to take a turn off yourself of developing your board to stop your opponent? It's hard to say. I'm not the expert. I'm just the commentator. But we do see he decides to just go for it. And, worst case scenario, maybe he just has a 2-2. He has his own force. He can at least be a little ahead on the board in the early games because he knows he has that Footfalls coming off. So Footfalls goes on the stack here, and I do believe I see a Mystical Dispute. So if he has Outburst in his hand, he has to decide if he wants to commit to that now or if he just wants to develop his board and maybe try to deal with it later. But he decides to just go for it. And you don't get to pay 1 for Mystical Dispute on a Footfalls. It is a green card. So a little awkward, but you would have to target the actual Shardless agent to only pay 1. But there wasn't a whole lot more to spend the mana on anyway. All right, so nothing from JP here. So this is actually looking pretty good for William. That Footfalls is going to come off very soon, and he finds force, so he's feeling much safer. All right, he attacks for 2. William's going to go to 17. I'm sorry, JP's going to go to 17. And Teferi's a big deal here. If he can resolve that Teferi, he'll be in great shape, but there's a lot of mana there. Okay, so he decides to commit to Teferi, and he'll respond by playing the Outburst before he's not allowed to. And this Force of Negation in his hand is not going to save him. But it's possible that over the course of turns, he can use Force to stop another card. But we will see a resolved Crashing Footfalls here. All right, so best case scenario for JP. He gets his 2 Rhinos, takes down Teferi, finds his own Force of Negation, and is able to prevent the next Footfalls from William. It's like best case scenario. But there is a lot of gas in his hands, so if he can deal with the Rhinos on board, so he has at least 1 Fury. So if he finds a land, which he did not, he could cast Fury, which would put him up. Invoking Fury here is probably not his favorite choice. Going down a card is a big deal at this point in the game. But he decides to just commit to it because he wants to protect Teferi. So I don't hate it. Teferi is open to a fire. And that's probably what we're going to see. I do believe JP has a Fire Ice in his hand. Okay, finding a Footfalls at this point in the game is not the best. But since their life totals are pretty high, at least it's not a totally dead card like it was last game. Okay, this isn't bad. It's not Fire Ice like I thought he had, but at least it's not counterable with Force Negation to swing tempo too hard in his favor. But he definitely needs to deal with this Teferi. The fact that Teferi did have to use his ability will at least give him a little more ease on finding that answer. But he has a lot of attack power in his hand, but he needs to answer that Teferi, or he's not going to get to use that Footfall. So he effectively has realistically 3 turns, I would say. He definitely wants to answer before the Footfalls would come off suspend. So JP being at 16, his life totals have come into place, but if this Footfalls off, you have to remember when it actually is cast off suspend, they had haste. So it's starting to look bad. So by putting this Footfalls on the stack, knowing it will resolve, JP is going to have a really good string of draws here. So if we get maybe Fire, take out Fairy, cast one of his Footfalls from Cascade, he's going to be on the defensive, so he's going to have to block Rhinos. That Force of Negation in William's hand is not useful at the moment, so this could be a window to get some stuff done. He will take a large hit from these Rhinos, though. Oh no, he didn't attack with his hasty Rhinos. Oh no, I'm sorry. That only applies to creatures. I don't think the tokens themselves have haste, so never mind, that makes sense. So creature cards types will have haste from Suspend, but since Crashing Football is a sorcery that makes creature tokens, the tokens do not. So, all right, and that's going to do it. That was a pretty solid game, but we didn't see any Omnath this time. Omnath does have quite a wild swing, but I think overall, tempo is the most important thing. So whether you take advantage of that tempo through being on the play and just capitalizing on good sequencing, or if you have a wild, overpowered card like Omnath, just swinging it back in your favor. But coming back to the booth here, I think both games played out relatively the same in terms of their tactical strategies, even though the cards specifically, he went wide that time instead of going tall. But we're going to go ahead and take another break, and we'll be right back. All right, well, that's going to do it for this round. It looks like William did take a pretty swift 2-0, even though he did it with different specific cards. Footfalls just kind of did its thing. It just plays its cards, beats you down, and counters your spell, whatever it is. But I think, given the number of players here, he is still in the running for top 8, even with 3 losses, because there were only 64 players in day 2, and there are 16 rounds. So if he wins his next round, he should be good for top 8. We'll be back with some win-and-ins and the top 8, and we'll see you next time. Okay, we are back. We're here. It's the Pro Support Accessories TCG Weekend, and we are covering the final round of the Magic the Gathering 20k. And this is a win in it. It's important. This is for a lot of biggies, a lot of ching-chings, and a lot
it's
of
the moment we all hope we end up in when we come to these events.
Green rectangles and gold cups, man. This is a big deal, and I know I fold under pressure a lot, so I really have a lot of respect for players that can still play a tight game on the camera and for a lot of things.
We call these the sweaty rounds.
Sweaty rounds.
Yeah, sweaty rounds. Right
so when watching this, we're going to just kind of be paying attention to how the players navigate their cards and based on how the decks they chose. And I'm hoping we see some spicy brews getting into the top 8 because Modern's kind of convolved around 5, 6 top decks.
It's always nice when you get something unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to go ahead and go down to the feature match and start getting a look at what our players is doing. It looks like they're still resolving some mulligans. I don't know if they've already drawn their 7, but it looks like we are going to have at least one Loris player. So if you had to pick your least favorite card that Loris brings back, what would it be?
Right now, probably the hammer. It's just like they can just hit you out of nowhere with Infect, and then you're just dead.
I try to, I'm wondering what exactly it is about the hammer that beats you. Is it just the fact that it's so big and they smash you with it, or is it just unliftable? Unless you have the aura,
No, it's just so mana efficient. You know what I mean? 1 mana and they get 10 power. It's not right.
It's funny because enchanted hammers that aren't liftable, because it reminds me of something.
He's trying to make a Thor joke, everybody. It's not really working for me, honestly.
I mean, think about it. You got a big hammer. It's hard to equip, so therefore it's hard to lift. and there's an enchantment called Sigarda's Aid that lets you equip it. I mean, this is a big coincidence.
I don't know. I think you're trying to big brain this analogy here, but I'll go with it.
I am totally galaxy brain right now. Okay, so I don't know if he's playing Hammer. I think it's a reasonable assumption because I did see a few Hammer decks at the top tables the last couple of rounds, so it would not surprise me to see that. And with Luris, we do know that there won't be a Stoneforge package that includes swords and battle scroll.
So it looks like we got, I think Mac looks like he's on some sort of blue brew, and Tony's got the Luris deck. I'm seeing a Blood Crypt, so it's probably maybe one of the Jund or Death Shadow decks.
Yeah, so it looks like he's on Rakdos.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking Death Shadow, like you said. Yeah, shocking Thoughtseize. So we're almost certainly going to see some Death Shadow, maybe some Scourge of the Sky Cleave.
Well, Thoughtseize turn 1 is exactly on schedule, so he's got to be feeling good about this round.
Yeah, turn 1 Thoughtseize is pretty good. So Tommy drops to 16 here, which in his case is a good thing because he wants to get those Death Shadows out as soon as possible.
Normally, I would take a Prismari command on the Thoughtseize, but since he's got 2 of them, I'd be looking at more of an action card, so maybe Lightning Bolt or one of the other cards there.
I think since he only has 1 land, I would want to probably take his cantrip. At this point, maybe try to screw him over.
Well, he's basically got 3 cantrips. He just has to find 1 land. So it's kind of comparative at that point. It's like you're playing the odds, which is a solid option, but...
So I can't quite make out what that old frame blue card is, but if it's not a cantrip, if it was me, I would probably take the Thought Scour. But I am kind of greedy like that, so... okay, he decides to go with one of the expressive iterations. So I think at this point, like he's just taking card advantage and selection. We get both. Might as well take the best one, right?
All right, going to Mac here.
Uh-oh, it's monkey time.
Yep. This is some monkey business, everybody.
He's going to steal your treasure, and he's going to go back onto the shoulder of Barbosa and hack at you. That's what's going to happen. That's what it feels like every time I get hit by it.
Turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 1 Ragavan. Pretty standard so far.
Yeah, so he just nukes it. I mean, don't let him get a treasure. Don't let him get a card. It's not worth it. But no clock yet for our Death Shadow player. Usually you want something on turn 2, but a lot of time you can't quite get low enough to play the actual Death Shadow until turn 3. So it doesn't, he didn't have a fetch lane turn 1. Okay, so here's the bobble. So we see a bobble, but no Luris from Tommy. Or I'm sorry, from Mac, and that suggests he's probably playing Dragon's Rage Chandler, which is a very reasonable assumption because I see blue and red mana. So he shocks down to 18, and he just passes. Yeah, he doesn't play. Oh, that was insane. Okay. So looks like Tommy did not have a third land. Am I seeing that right?
Looks like he's got a fetch lane there. He may just be waiting to play it, so he can stack as much
I see.
Life losses this turn as he can.
Yeah, definitely going to be untapping those lands because I see the Death Shadow in his hand. I believe he actually has 3 colors because if I'm not mistaken, that's a Drown and Lock. The card's very flexible. It's able to counter spells, kill creatures, all in 1 card for 2 mana. Is there really much more you can ask for?
Getting that Watery Grave online. I expect we're going to see a giant horror coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, with all the shocking Tom is doing, he's down to 13. Death Shadow can't quite come out. Oh, there we go. So now we're going to have, at maximum, if he wanted to this turn, he could have a 3/3 for 1. We've got a wow in the comment.
That was banned in Modern at one point.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, if you ask me. I think he's wanting a few more land drops, but once he gets to 3 mana, he's okay. So he decides not to play the Death Shadow, and I think it's because he's wanting to leave up that Drown and Lock. But what's the scariest thing he could play here? Murktide Regent? He can't use that to stop a Murktide Regent yet. I don't think so. So he decides to bobble himself because he's a fetch land. They call that the Quasi-Scry. So I'm going to call it.
Well, one of the weaknesses of these blue-red decks is they are pretty light on creatures, and he lost his early Ragavan, so that's where a lot of his gas is. And
yeah, that's exactly right. It's just like Delver. If you can deal with their threat. Honestly, Death Shadow has this problem too. There are lots of answers, a medium amount of threats. So if you can take care of the threats in a way, like back when Death Shadow was considered the best deck, one of my favorite cards against it was Abrupt Decay. It was great since Death Shadow. They usually would stubborn denial on your answers and kind of fast clock, but Abrupt Decay, I mean, it's been a little
Max passes back, and we're going
draws
to
from the bobble, then we're almost certainly going to see a Death Shadow this turn.
Yeah, and he's got that Inquisition of Kozilek, so you can clear it away for a turn at least.
Yeah, he has enough to Inquisition into Death Shadow into Weave Up the Drown and Lock. So I'm liking the position here, but it has not been a single attack step. Mac is still at 17, Tom's still at 13. So it's been kind of just a lot of, tiptoeing around the neutral zone, you know what I'm saying?
Well, he can easily hit himself for 6 here. Takes him down to 7. That gives him a 6/6 Death Shadow. That's pretty efficient.
Yeah,
especially if he's got some sort of discard and the Drown and the Lock left.
That will definitely close the game out fast, but 6 life is it's divisible by 3, and you know what that means.
Lightning Bolt.
I mean, lightning bolts, enchanted hammers are hard to lift. I mean, I don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah. So the modern meta right now is one giant galaxy brain attempt to make you think about Thor. That's what's going on.
Spread over all the different archetypes. Yeah. Okay, so he's bringing himself 7, just predicted, and he's going to go Inquisition into Death Shadow, and he needs to protect this Death Shadow because it is his only threat.
Well, that's one of the things, though. So the difference here is Ragavan gets killed by Burn. 6/6 Death Shadow doesn't really care about those lightning bolts that are sitting in Mac's hand.
Yeah.
So
Unholy Heat can deal 6 damage, but if that Death Shadow gets 1 power bigger, it will be, I think, just straight up unkillable from blue-red. I don't think there's anything to deal more than 6 damage. Okay, so we've got a Bolt, a Thought Scour, an Expressive Duration, a Brazen Borrower, and Counterspell. Wow, that's what it is. So that's a pretty strong hand, but he is a little soft on land, so he's only about 1-ish spells a turn, 1.5 spells a turn maybe. And is he going to Brazen Borrower the Death Shadow? That seems not that great.
He could, so that's probably why Tommy's going to take the Counterspell, I would imagine.
I wouldn't blame him for taking the Lightning Bolt, though, because if he gets to 6, I don't blame him for taking Expressive Duration either, but honestly, every single card here, except for maybe Thought Scour, is reasonable. Brazen Borrower is a fast clock. Counterspell is a good 1-for-1.
I feel like he can Drown in the Lock the Brazen Borrower if he goes that route. Taking the Counterspell is probably the best option.
Well here's the you could take Brazen Borrower and then Drown in the Lock the Counterspell.
And there is the Death Shadow. Right now,
I think he wants to use Counterspell here, so he uses his mana. So it's kind of predictable.
Yeah, you get that tempo play up on him by baiting him into. Looks like he let it resolve, and now he's going for maybe a Thought Scour.
No, I think it might still be on the stack. I think he wants to see if he has a better answer to not burn this Counterspell. I can't quite tell what he drew, but no, it looks like he didn't find it, so he's going to burn that Counterspell.
And Drown in the Lock.
Do we Drown in the Lock? They're kind of all in on this Shadow at this point.
Well, he has no threats in his hand either outside of that Lightning Bolt if you let yourself get a little bit too low. And he's got him on a 3-turn clock right now. So he gets 3 top decks plus whatever cards he sees. And I don't know. I feel like Death Shadow is really in a good spot right here.
So, with Max still being at 17, he's definitely not dead in one shot. But that Death Shadow will dwindle that life total down very quickly. It's one of the few playable vanilla creatures in Modern.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly vanilla.
Yeah, but close enough.
What I'm more impressed with is that we have a Death Shadow deck that actually got the 4 lands. That is impressive right there.
Yeah. Death Shadow has evolved a little bit over the years, just playing more 2-mana answers, and it's got Loris now, so he can afford to play a slightly slower game. But I think Tommy here's been navigating it pretty well because our blue-red, I think, probably has the stronger late game, and he wants to make sure he can keep his threat in play. As usual, Expressive Iteration is exiling a land, so you can play it as your land drop. And with all the template updating, play is both play and cast.
Always nice when your opponent does your job for them.
Yeah, there's no point. Mac dropping to 16 is smart. There's really no point to shock. You don't usually need more than 2 red mana. You only have double blue. I can't think of a double red spell that sees play in most of the builds.
Still got that Lightning Bolt in his hands. Now he's going to...
Looks like a sleight of hand.
Yeah, that's sleight of hand.
We found Ragavan land, so he's definitely going to take this Ragavan. I can chump block.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth it though. He might want to try to set up a very fast kill. Like, yeah, you hit me, and then I like dash in. No, he's going for the block route. The problem is every time you attack back on the Death Shadow deck, the Death Shadow just gets bigger. It's a lose-lose.
Yeah, I think that that Ragavan is on chump duty right now. That's exactly.
Ragavan is absolutely on chump duty. That monkey cannot escape the Shadow of Death.
I don't think we saw anything to indicate that he would have a Force Negation in his hand right now.
No, it looks like he has, I want to say, an Expressive Iteration. But he played his land first, so Expressive Iteration will not be finding a land on the exile.
All right, what he wants here is Kill Spell and
Is that
Tamer
double
Battle
Is that double Inquisition of Kozilek? I think
That's
it is.
actually pretty good.
Well, so he can cast one Inquisition, take the Lightning Bolts, so he can be much safer. Or, I don't know.
Death Shadow's still a 6/6.
And Tommy being at 7, that's like kind of the perfect life total against a red deck. But you're still not dead to 2 Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, they need 3, and that's a little bit more harder to arrange.
I don't know exactly if they're talking about life totals, but I think they're talking about the fact that he played his mountain. So he's going to exile Thoughtseize. So
and keep one of the.
I think it was Inquisition.
Yeah, 2 Inquisitions and a Thoughtseize. So it's like he basically saw 3 of the same card.
Now he chose Thougeize because it does grow the Death Shadow, but it puts him a little closer to burn range. That extra Ragavan, he doesn't want an extra blocker, but he has 2 discard spells anyway, so he takes both of his cards, beats him, and I don't know, do you block here? Because now Death Shadow is negating.
Yeah, I would block here because you're on a 2-turn clock if you don't.
Yeah, you should be.
So
right?
if you block, you get one more turn to see a 3rd card. Maybe you get something that can tempo out that Death Shadow.
I think Tommy's
or
at
maybe
5.
you just find the Lightning Bolts.
It may have been a life.
Oh yeah, don't you hate that you're in a tight spot? You really need your top decks to come through, and you just see land. It is the worst feeling of the Magic player.
Yeah.
Mac down to 8. Looks like he did take that 8/8 Death Shadow to the face.
So, now the fact that
okay, so this is an interesting play here. What he's doing is he's trying to see a card off of the Ragavan to maybe deal with his opponent's Death Shadow.
Yeah, the fact that Tommy's at 3 is scary. Like, I mean, it's not something.
It makes that Death Shadow a 10/10.
Yeah, but I mean, Lightning Bolt. What do you do about that? You just make him have it. I mean, sometimes you just gotta make him happen. I don't think he'll be playing Snapcaster Mage. I don't see Snapcaster in a lot of these blue-red decks. Is that just 3 lands?
No, I think one of them's an expressive, maybe.
No, looks like
he
he just had nothing.
Up.
His top decks later were not being very kind to him. So, looks like Tommy is going to take game number 1.
And sideboard begins.
Yeah.
I'm bringing in as much burn as I got in my sideboard, to be honest.
Yeah.
Giving that late game reach against this deck is very important. But what you're seeing here is a deck that's really just a better version of the other deck, because Death Shadow and the red-blue decks work very similarly in a structural sense. It's just one has 10/10 Death Shadows, the other has 2/1 Hierarchies.
Absolutely. And they attack on very similar angles. They have a very similar number of threats, but they answer threats very differently. Blue red has counter spells, black red is discard. And I've learned how to evaluate these better and understand that hand, like targeted discard, is tempo negative. I pay 1 mana, you pay 0 mana, we trade 1 for 1. Whereas counter spells are tempo positive. You pay usually more mana than me, I counter your spell, and then I untap my mana into my turn. The downside about that is you have to leave your mana open and hope that you have something you can counter.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's really not as much of a tempo swing as you think, because you gave up tempo on your turn in order to take it away from them on their next turn. So it's still kind of even. I like discard spells, especially in a blue meta, because discard spells into counter magic is a better way to go about it, and then trying to hope you just got 1-up cards on them in hand. Because, what are you going to do if they lead a discard spell and you counter it? You're giving them information either way.
Yeah.
You still need to see their hand, but they know you've got something you want to protect.
It's very rare you actually do that. I'm wondering, if I'm playing Death Shadow, what's my best answer to a Murktide region? If you can't Thoughtseize it early in the game, and they land an 8/8 Murktide, I hope you have something like Terminate. I guess if it's late enough in the game, Drown Lock and kill it.
Yeah, I mean, what they would like is something where they pay life to bounce it or something like that, because bouncing a Murktide region is basically killing it as well.
Yeah, he does have access to blue mana. I'm not sure what it would be, but We're going to go ahead and take a quick break while our players finish sideboarding. We'll be right back with game number 2. All right, we are back with game number 2, and I don't know. I'm trying to think who I like more in this matchup after sideboard cards. What do you think?
I don't know. I really still think Death Shadow's favored because everything they're doing is just bigger and better than what the red-blue deck is doing. But, sideboards are to change that, and this is where we really hope we get that spicy tech that lets red-blue, claw back into the matchup.
Well, there's one thing I do know. It's that you really don't want to get hit with a Ragavan early on. That just will spiral way out of control. Ragavan is tempo and card advantage. That's insane. It's like Goblin Guide without goblins.
I mean, it is, but I feel like it's not the first Ragavan hit that gets you. It's like the second and third one. So, taking one hit, if you have a strategy where you're going to let them hit you so you can get a tempo play on your turn 2, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I can see it kind of working out with that. And with Lightning Bolts, you really want to burn on Ragavan early. If it's the Dash Shadow player, you could save it to go upstairs. Most of the time, though, you're going to see people just take the Ragavan out. They'll kill on spot just like Goblin Guy. You just don't want it hitting you.
Well, it looks like Mac is going down to 6. That's not a spot you want to be in. You never want to be down a game and mulliganing into game 2. You get to go first usually, depending on the matchup and what deck you choose to play. But I don't like mulliganing after sideboards. It's really not a good feeling.
Yeah, especially on decks like this where the number of cards does matter. You're not playing Dredge or Tron and you can afford to mulligan really low.
Yeah, or if your opponent's playing such a linear deck, you just need that one hit piece to really sideline what they're trying to do.
Honestly, I would say the reason Mac kind of just puffered out and lost is because he just drew lands. So he's effectively had no cards. He ran out of cards.
See, land pass from Mac.
No Ragavan. Not where you want to be on the play.
Yeah, looks like Tommy's got a Ragavan.
Yeah.
Now the question is, does he want to Thoughtseize or does he want to get something on the board?
It is always tempting to get Ragavan out as fast as possible to get attacking, but I wouldn't hate Thoughtseize.
Well, when they're already down a card on you, I think getting that Thoughtseize out of the way is really good. You could make an argument for the Ragavan first if you're really not scared of their early plays. So, it's a really 50-50 shot here. I think I would probably Thoughtseize here, just so I can see maybe what he sideboarded.
I think Mac is on a team. I can't remember their name, but I think he's on a player's team. Okay, so we've got Double Expressive, Archmage's Charm, Lightning Bolt. So
not a lot of stuff.
I think you just take the bolt and resolve Ragavan. I don't know. Taking one or two Special Iteration. Special Iteration is maybe, this is an opinion, but maybe it's secretly the best card in the deck for this card in selection and card advantage. But
if you want to go big brain, I actually think you let him bolt your Ragavan. You take the Archmage Charm. That way, when you get that Shadow out, he doesn't just take it from you.
I think he agrees with you. He takes the Archmage Charm, and he's already down to 15, trying to get closer to that Shadow of Death.
Because see, now what you've done is you've really just turned that Lightning Bolt you've turned your Ragavan in your hand into a Thoughtseize for Lightning Bolt in his hand. You're going to play Ragavan, he's going to Lightning Bolt it. Now you've taken another turn away from him, and he's just got Card Filter in his hand.
Yeah. But if he doesn't get a fast clock, though, that Card Filter will take him out of it.
Well, it definitely could. That's the risk you play, though, right? Because you don't know what they're going to draw. They could draw really bad. They could draw all kinds of things.
I'm not going to lie. There's very few times in the first, 4 turns of the game where I've seen Expressive Iteration not exile a land. Yeah, it's predictable.
It's almost basically like Super Explore at that point.
And it doesn't even really give any information away. I do have to be honest, I'm pretty jealous of those Onslaught strains. I've been trying to get that for a long time, and they're signed And even though Rob Alexander was at most of the Grand Prix, like nowadays, there aren't Grand Prix. So it's, I don't know, it's jelly.
It's always nice when you can bling out an actual tournament deck, that's for sure. So it looks like Mac is grabbing a basic island here. Probably going to go for an expressive, Hopes you find something good.
I think I saw a Unholy Heat. So being able to deal 6 damage could be good, but he doesn't have any threads out yet, so that would probably go to his hand. But I couldn't quite see what the other cards were.
I think one of them's another lightning bolt. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I've got 2 lightning bolts. That's a little scary.
A lightning bolt doesn't get cast here. Playing Expressive Iteration on turn 2 is not the favorite thing to do, but I guess he just didn't have anything to use mana on. He's effectively just going to cycle the stress down here. Doesn't look like he has more lands in his hand. He didn't find it either. So he's just going to play Kroxa.
This is a beating, actually. He's just going to whittle down his opponent's hand. If you try to fight it, he's just going to keep casting it.
Yeah, and it is effectively, since he mulliganed and didn't go up a card on that Expressive Iteration, this is going to... okay, so he's doing the chemo. He's doing the chemo. So a little dress down is still in play. So, because he put it into play on the instep, and the next instep it gets sacrificed. So he gets it on his turn, plays Kroxa, gets to keep it as a 2-mana 6/6. Seems good.
Yep. If a 1-mana 6/6 is amazing, a 2-mana 6/6, pretty good as it turns out.
I don't think Mac likes his position here. I sure hope he has that Unholy Heat in his hand. Let me see. He's got sorcery, instant lands, so he's not quite at that Delirium. I don't know. This is looking really good for the Death Shadow player.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is.
He's at 13 life, so Death Shadow's almost down. Max at 19.
Hey, you may not even need Death Shadow. This
Yeah.
Kroxa is just going to come in for him.
He can dash the Ragavan too. I really like this.
Yeah. Smack him for 8. Makes your clock basically 2.5 turns.
You'll really be hitting him for potentially, because he's missing his land drops. But he won't be discarding land, so yeah, I guess it's only 8. Still didn't find the lands.
If Kroxa is sideboard for this particular matchup, that would qualify, in my opinion, as spicy.
Kroxa is pretty spicy. It's probably main board though. I know a lot of them play Kroxa. It meets the lowest rule. Yeah, they're gonna main board it most of the time. It's like the big threat for 2 mana, even though he's effectively usually a 4-mana threat. But I'm not gonna lie, this dress down into Kroxa reminds me a little bit of Phyrexian Dreadnought.
Yeah, definitely.
And even Dreadnought is seeing dress down being played because it's also a defensive card. Dress down is used to stop other strategies. He may not have found a land looking for the land, but Bobble's not a bad second flank, so give him the extra cards, but he does not have much time. Okay, he has a land in his hand, so that is good. So he found a land somewhere in there. It just wasn't off the Expressive Exile.
See, this is where dashing Ragavan can actually be really good, because now if he wants to try to play something, because he's like, I'm taking this Kroxa anyway, whatever, I'm just going to do it. Let me dig a little bit. Yep, looks like it comes out that.
Okay, so the artifact gave him Delirium, so he is able to deal with it, but there is a second Kroxa in his hand. If he finds another land, especially at least a fetch land, he'll start getting Kroxa back anyway. But he has dressed down again. If he finds that 4th land, he did not. We have double Drown and Long. So
always nice when you have your protection.
It looks like since he didn't hit a land, he's just going to cast Ragavan. No. I don't blame him. He felt like he was way ahead with Kroxa, but it looks like Mac was able to dig his way out.
Well, if he dashes Ragavan here, he gets the treasure, assuming it hits, and then he can play Kroxa next turn either way, even without the land drop. So
it's too bad.
And then Ragavan it's safe on his turn.
Lands. Or that'd be really sweet. I would definitely dash him at that point, but it's overpowered enough as it is.
I'm curious as to what threat he's worried about, because if he's hesitating to dash, he's wanting to leave mana up. So, all right, so he dashes out Ragavan. Is he going to follow it up with the dress down?
He could protect the
Ragavan
with
the dress down next turn.
Yeah, he could protect it with one of those Drown and Lost in his hand.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going to have a much grindier game, too. He was able to dig his way out.
I wouldn't say it's out of the woods. Yeah, that's one of the things about Kirksey. He doesn't really go away. He just kind of like takes a break and then he's back.
Okay, so here he can dress
there's
down.
the big boy.
He could dress down, depending on how the ruling went, because they were consulting a judge on the interaction between dress down and Murktide region. I believe the answer is going to be that it will not stop the as it enters ability, but it will stop the rest of the card. So,
Dress down from Tommy, and he does come in with those 4
could be
plus
mistaken. He's going for it, so it suggests to me it does work.
Oh, and the spell pierce.
But Pierce is going to get you. Pierce always gets you.
All right, so now a 7/7 Murktide Regent from Mac.
That's pretty scary. That's not what I want to see, because already being at 13 life. Oh, I'm not going to lie, that might have been one of the better draws. That wasn't a land, because this will help put a faster clock back on it. So if Murktide smacks him for 8, that Dutch house will be large.
Yeah, then all you need is one good Teamer Battle Rage. I know.
No, we can't play Death Shadow because he is at 13.
Oh.
That was the answer he needed, but yeah, he's 1 life short.
Well, he's got a few options depending on what he's trying to achieve with the Ragavan play here. He always could bring back a Kroxa if he puts Luris in his hand now, regardless of whether or not he gets the land next turn.
Yeah. As
And then
far
he
as
has
the
his
treasure
hand
looks
for
like, though, he's going to be smacked for 8 here. That's going to happen. So what he could do instead is play a Death Shadow. No, he can't play Death Shadow. So he's 2 turns from attacking with a Death Shadow. He could shoot himself for 2 damage. No, he's not doing that. So he's going to deal 2 damage and then Unholy Heat for 8.
Sounds like a good play.
He's going to 2 damage, make you discard. Unholy Heat, finish off the Murktide. And then that puts him in a decent spot.
Yeah, it's a 2 for 2, so it's really like a 1 for 1, and doesn't put him in the worst spot ever.
I don't blame him for discarding that explosive here. It would at best trade 1 for 1 with 3 mana with Ragavan. So it looks like we're back to neutral. And he's still being at 13 is a little annoying as a Death Shadow player. You're like, come on, man.
Yeah, I actually see Death Shadow players use the 2 damage off Culligan's command to actually shoot themselves a little bit. But when you have to use this removal, that's never good.
Okay, at the moment, I'm not 100% of the contents of Mac's hand, but I believe he has no threat. That might be the second Murktide in his hand. I can't really tell.
Very tense point in the matchup here.
Yeah.
Both players have kind of done their big thing. They both answered. When the dust settles, we got a Ragavan, and let's see what happens next. Oh, there's a Blood Moon. Okay. That's not fun.
I do like this. I like it a lot. No black or blue mana for you.
Yeah, and you can't even go fetch for it either.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
He really cannot cast any spells in his hand. Now, the Ragavan does give him treasures, though.
This
so
is
he needs
true.
to find something fast to kill that Ragavan.
Kill that Blood Moon, you mean. But yes.
So Matt goes 15. He finds just another land. Perfect. So what do you do with the treasure? Do you sit on it? Do you use it now?
Well, so you could go for the expressive iteration now, but this also may help you eventually. Well, it depends on how many turns he thinks he's got before his opponent starts to develop a threat.
Well, there's not going to be Brazen Borrower in this list because of Luris, so I don't think he can answer this Blood Moon.
Well, maybe he's got
I think that's Mystical Dispute his hand, not Murktide. So he's got Mystical Lightning Bolt, which he's about to fire off on this Ragavan, but he's going to be able to use one of those Drowning Locks. But that forces him to use up the treasure. But then if Ragavan gets another attack step in, so here's what I think is going to happen. It's going to go Bolt,
Lightning Bolt.
then you're going to see Drowning Lock, then you're going to see Mystical Dispute, and then that might just be the game.
Not necessarily. He still does have to get a threat out.
He sniffs it out, so he just lets it happen. He's like, I need to save this treasure for something. I don't even know what he's going to be able to do to answer this puzzle. So he's using blue for expressive iteration, but how many basics realistically does he even play? Back when it was old school Grixis Death Shadow, they never played basic mountain. They would play maybe like 2 islands and a swamp.
Right.
So I don't know how he's going to get out of this long term with this Ragavan dead.
Well, the ironic part here is he's playing Basic Mountain. So there's Mystical Dispute, and he can't do anything about that.
Oh yeah, I think he's just out now. I forget. He can just it's lose.
All right, so now he's got to find a threat though. Like, yeah, he won that trade
Just
there.
one blue mana, so we're not going to be seeing. Oh, he found an island. That's perfect. It's perfect. Things are looking very good now.
Expressive iteration, digging for a threat.
Expressive iteration just shining really well in the modern format. It's seen legacy play.
Well, 2 mana, draw 2 cards. Usually is a pretty good card. And it's in the colors that want to be doing that kind of stuff anyway. So
2 mana, draw 2 have a top 3 though. Like, I mean, selection and advantage. The Blood Moon plan is excellent here by Mac, and he needed to win this game. So put Lur's Man. At least I can not cast that one.
Yeah, but it lets him get back Ragavans and potentially
here it
play
goes.
some. Yeah,
It's over. I don't see how he's going to deal with this. If he draws black mana, he still can't take it out, and he gets 2 draw steps.
Oh, and there's a Dragon Rage Channeler. That speeds the clock up quite a bit as well. It looks like he was able to actually go at, and he scoops it up.
He's like, he can't take the blood now. Like, it's just not happening.
Well, regardless of that, he just basically put 10 power on the board all at once, and that's just really rough to deal with.
Yeah, so back here in the booth, what are you thinking about? How do you deal with blood moon? If you can't bounce these, what do you do?
So classically, you use some kind of bounce if you're in those colors. Now, I don't know. We haven't really seen a lot of bounce coming from Tommy's deck.
Yeah, the only one I can think of would be Brace Bar. That would a Death Shadow deck would play, but he's Loris, so he can't do that. So,
well, you've got other options.
I guess like Counter and Thoughtseize are the only ones I can think of. Traditionally, enchantments have been weak to, or it's a soft spot for red and black. So that's going to be on his radar, but he's on the play this game. If he can get it, he needs an earlier clock, because if you put a fast clock out, you can just ignore the Blood Moon.
That's true.
But I mean, we're going to get a game 3. These decks are even the matchup. And the interesting thing is, as similar as the way they attack, their tactical strategies, they're playing out very different.
Well, yeah, you're seeing the red-blue deck able to fetch its basics and slam a Blood Moon and take advantage of the fact that Death Shadow plays an extra color. That's where some of that extra power we saw in game 1 came from, and they're able to take that away. Yeah. If you take the advantage they have away, then it makes it a lot more in your favor. So that is one of the trade-offs you get by only playing a 2-color deck, because you're not as weak.
I would say it's more than just taking an advantage away. It's giving them a new disadvantage, because now they just can't play their spells. It's like insane, like how much it swings it over in this particular situation.
Well, so here's the interesting thing, though. So now Tommy knows the Blood Moon is in his deck, so maybe he fetches his basics around that in advance.
A lot of the time on the draw, you take Blood Moon back out, but knowing how few basics that Shadows play, it might be okay to leave a couple in and catch them with their pants down. But here's another thing to consider. Mac is now aware that Tommy can do dress down Crowstone. That kind of surprised him. So he's going to be able to play around that a little bit or two. So our players will be fully well informed of all the little tricks and strategies that they're bringing to the table, and which hopefully get a good game 3. But we're going to go ahead and take a break as they finish up doing their little sideboard, and hopefully we get something as good as game 2, because I really enjoyed that game today. But we'll be right back. Thanks so much. Back to the booth. We're going into game 3. Blue-Red Murktide versus Grixis Death Shadow. We're going to head down to the feature match right now and see how our opponent's going to get this game going. Turn 1 bobble. Let's see if we're going to do the quasi scry.
Looks like both players kept their 7, so this is always nice. I mentioned earlier this was the sweaty rounds, but this is also the sweaty game because this is game 3. This is for all the marbles.
This is it. Winner very, very likely goes to the top 8 here.
All right, so he plays his Scalding Tarn after the Bobble and passes. Kind of disappointing to not have anything. I mean, he did filter and see what his opponent was drawing, but
well, here's what happened. No, I think he bobbled himself. I didn't catch it, but and he liked his card, so he did not play a turn 1 Ragavan on the play. That card must be very good.
I believe he got that Ragavan off the Bobble, but we see Mac here start with Dragon Rage Channeler. Right now, it's just a 1/1, but that can soon change.
Man, it's that ability though.
The Surveil, That's basically card quality.
And that's
every
why,
turn.
even though they don't have lures, that's why Blue-Red is still playing some bobbles. Just 0 mana Surveil, like double Scry draw card.
Yeah, it's amazing. And to have all that on a 1 mana is just really, really good. All right,
not having a turn 1 play there is a little suspect. That card must have, I know Ragavan's good, but you're not playing it on the first turn. It's like,
Yeah, well, we see Tommy now going for the turn 2.
Yeah, he's probably going to turn 2 Ragavan. So Tommy here is going to already, Tommy here is going to already be down to, I want to say 15, yeah. So he's going to try to get as close to Death Shadow as fast as it can. Must be fast. He does not want to get his opponent trying to find Bloodman because he's not processing a Bloodman right now. Since Mac is only at 18 and not facing down any threats,
I would take the Murktide Regent here because again, that's the name. That's
Holy Heat would maybe be one of the things you want to protect your Ragavan, and if something else is used on Ragavan, it's one of the few things that can kill a Corruption.
Yeah, but he's got a Sleight of Hand and an Expressive Iteration in his hand, and not only Unholy Heat, but also Lightning Bolt that's in his opponent's
deck. That
deck.
might be a mystical dispute. So I'm almost certain. Oh, he takes just in terms of raw power the best card in his hand. I would have considered taking Unholy Heat there, just because it's probably the best removal spell pound for pound, like per mana spent. But he just can't afford to play his Ragavan right now. But the reason I think I'm okay with taking fresh iterations is because his hand is kind of fluffy. There's not really any gas.
Well, another thing to think about is if you think he's going to play more cards that match up with Expressive Iteration, that delays the Delirium on Dragon Rage Chandler. Whereas if you put the creature there and then he casts a bunch of instants and sorceries, it may get him there a little bit faster. So that is the trade-off you get.
Yeah, definitely a lot of lines of thought going into that, and that's one of the marks of a good player is you're able to kind of get through that quickly. You don't want to spend too much time on a little play like Catafonsis.
All right, so he Deliriums the Flooded Strand into his graveyard, again helping out with that Delirium. Takes a card. We're probably going to see some attack for 1.
Fetches down to 17, and he's able to get that Surveil engine going.
Yeah, we're going to get this Dragon Rage Chandler coming in for 1, most likely. I like how players tap the table to count, and it's you think they're counting damage when they only have
Question: how often do you do that to make it look like you're trying to Jedi mind trick people?
Yeah, I think that's going a little too deep at this stage of the game, but some players like to do that.
Now the question is here. I think what he's trying to figure out is if there's a way to get Delirium now, and it looks like he does not have that.
Yeah, he need to get probably 2 other card types into the graveyard.
Yeah, was it sorcery land? Yeah, no, he's nowhere close. Well, he has a bobble on his hand, which I assume he would have used already. Oh, he's not attacking? No way. Or is he passing to combat? Is a trick, maybe? No, I can't imagine he can kill it. He should have killed it before he got all this Surveil, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything he could have really done about that. So
is he not attacking?
Okay, looks like Tommy's going to fetch here. Taking 3 while his opponent's about to swing 1. He's probably getting some sort of answer. Winner's tap.
I don't know what's going on right now.
It's entirely possible that Mac just passed the turn and didn't attack. I'm not sure why, though, at this stage of the game.
The only thing I can think of if it's on purpose is if he wants to block a dashed Ragavan. That's the only thing I can think of. But I don't think he knows he has Ragavan.
Yeah, but I mean, he knows he plays it, right? So it's kind of like you make that trade-off there.
My 2 picks are somehow. I don't think he would have forgot to attack. So
shots in a watery grave.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it is possible he just had passed quickly, kind of thinking, "Oh, my turn's gonna be over soon." But it's it's a high stake, so there's gonna take these backsies here.
Yep.
But I think it's to stop dash Ragavan.
Well, his opponent did just hard cast a Ragavan, so I guess mission accomplished.
If that was what he meant to do, that's some big brain action right there. But I'm not gonna lie, Spell Pierce is really strong right here.
All right, lightning bolts, targeting Ragavan, Dragon Rage Chandler trigger.
First. Yeah. Do you use Spell Pierce to protect Ragavan? I think you do.
You know, it's more about what you think your opponent's going to do. He knows he has that Murktide region, right? So I don't anticipate Spell Pierce being to protect the removal he's going to use on the Murktide region.
Well, I think that might have been Mystical Speed. I didn't get a good look at it. I don't think that was Murktide region, but let's find out here. Okay, he decides not to fight over it. He's going to save that for another day. He's going to burn a heat on a 1/1. Feels bad, but those Surveil will just get out of just run away with the game. Oh, now he finds an artifact. A little late there, but that's okay. At least he'll turn his Unholy Heat on to be stronger and maybe dig himself. Does he have a fetch land? He does not. So he looks at his opponent's top card. A little bit of information. I'm thinking at this point in the game, maybe he does have Murktide.
Yeah, Max shocks in that Steam Vents.
Oh, he does have Murktide. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be a 7/7.
Big giant flying boys are always nice to play for 2 mana.
Can't Spell Pierce that.
Indeed. Now he just doesn't have Ragavan.
Yeah, this is not going to be the easiest thing to answer. He burnt his Unholy Heat, which you can use to pair up with something, but 7/7 gets out of it, so it's not going to be 1-for-1. He's going to have to find an answer to this fast.
He is on a 2-turn clock, ladies and gentlemen. 12 life, which is a game you play when you're playing Death Shadow. But yeah, it looks like this Murktide region is just going to be a problem.
Yeah. No, actually, yeah. So he's at 12, which usually Death Shadow wants to be at. And since his opponent's only at 16, he's nowhere near killing him. But if he can find a Death Shadow, that Death Shadow will grow proportionally to him being attacked down. But it might not be enough because the chunks are so big.
Yeah, I mean, Death Shadow doesn't have haste. Even if he lands one next turn, it's not going to really make a big difference. And that, you hate to see it. When you know you got them on the ropes and they go to dig, you can freely counter that. That's always nice.
Yeah, right now it's ultimate. It's just, I kill you before you find an answer. That Spell Pierce hasn't been looking so hot, even though I like bringing it in.
Yeah, sometimes all it takes is a big, giant flyer just in the game.
Okay, so he gets one more turn to either find an answer to this or find another turn.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is why you should run Bounce in blue decks. It's one of the better ways to deal with big creatures, especially if you don't have a lot of good straight-up destroy effects.
Yeah, you can't. The only real answer to this that's efficient is Thoughtseize. Well, I mean, that he's playing, right? Since you can't Inquisition it, you can team up burn spells, but that's not always guaranteed to line up, right?
Yeah, and you're just putting yourself further behind in the card advantage game. It's just not where you want to be.
And what's weird is even though Drown Lock can in theory kill it, a lot of the time it doesn't. Because 7 mana is a lot.
All right, so he's looking at different fetch options. I'm wondering if he's thinking about, nope, he just goes for a tapped dual land.
He can't afford to lose more life here.
Well, it's more like, did he learn his lesson about Bloodmoon last game? I was expecting more basics, but that's kind of not at all what happened.
Maybe he was extra Galaxy Brain and realized he probably took it out because he thought I would go for basics now. There's no way. I don't know. At this point, he needs to find... Does he see the burn spells? No, he doesn't. I don't think he has any outs. Oh, no. Express Duration lets him play 2 cards, right? So you can find, like, Heat Bolts.
Yeah.
So he has outs, but his opponent has a bunch of untapped mana. That's got to be scary.
Yeah. So Express Iteration coming through.
No.
Is he going to get out? He lets us
only
resolve.
at 4 life. This is going to be...
Here we got Ragavan and
Iteration lands. That's not going to do it. That is not going to do it. He's seeing the writing on the wall, all the glory on the line.
Land Spell Pierce?
Even though he could find some off the top of his library, he won't have mana. I just don't see it.
Yeah, like Vapor Snag would be awesome, or Unsummon. Like, all these cards nobody plays because they're mostly terrible. But there are a lot of situations, especially in a metagame, where you're going to be facing down Murktide regions and Croxus and Death Shadows and things like that. It's nice to just be able to pay 1 mana. Hey, get rid of that for now. Let's reset it Summoning Sickness. Especially a Delta.
I don't think it would have found anything anyway. But
and there's a handshakes.
So
Mac wins.
He's likely locked for top 8. Congratulations to Mac, pulling that back out of losing the first game.
Yeah, that's how you do it in the sweaty rounds.
Yeah, and well, back here in the booth, we're sitting here talking about things like, oh, he could have this card, this card, but when you're actually in the hot seat, it's hard to think along the same lines. Like you're not looking from the bird's eye view.
I mean, that's definitely true. When it's your turn to make those decisions, it always feels more difficult. I am just always curious why these tempo and blue decks that don't play hard destruction don't play any kind of bounce for those big creatures. We see so many board states where it would be good, and it's like you almost can expect them in this metagame, and yet we're just not seeing it.
Bounce is also really good, so it's how much footfalls is around. The only bounce you really see is Brazen Borrower, and if you want to play Lures, you don't get that. Yeah, I don't know. But at this point, those decks are so similar, but blue-red pulling it out on top, it is probably the number one deck right now in this format, showing its prowess. But congratulations to Matt. I hope you made top 8, and we'll see you here for the first round of the quarterfinals.